The worst year for a lot of us for our mental as well as physical health. So joining us this morning is best-selling author, coach, and fitness expert, Lisa Goldenthal.
Hello and welcome. I'm Lisa G, your host. You're at the top of your game, yet the game is changing faster than ever. Strategies that got you here aren't the ones that'll keep you here. The pressure is relentless, and the fear of obsolescence looms large. That's why I'm here. Welcome to the new podcast series, Disrupted: How to Be Gritty and Unlock Performance. This is your chance where I sit down with today's tops in business, mindset, wellness, and success to help you master disruption and thrive.
Thanks for coming, and I'll see you soon. Today's guest isn't just talking about trust. He's redefining what it means to build it. From Harvard to McKinsey to Duke University to the boardrooms of the world's top company, Darryl is the authority when it comes to trust and transformation, named one of the top global thought leaders on trust. He doesn't just consult, he rewires culture. He challenges leaders to ditch the perfection mask and drive performance by embracing vulnerability, uncertainty, and real human connection. So whether you're a CEO or a leader navigating the chaos, this episode is your roadmap to creating a resilient, high-trust culture that wins. Welcome to the show, Darryl Stickel.
Thank you, Lisa. Wow, that was a great intro.
Thank you. I like to have a little fun with my podcast. Let's jump in. I want to jump into these topics because I really love this topic of trust and believe in it so wholeheartedly myself.
Yeah.
What is the biggest myth leaders believe about trust, and how does it quietly sabotage performance at the top?
Wow, that's okay. So that's a great question. There's
Thank-
actually a couple of things that get in our way. One of those for all of us is this belief that we're trustworthy. So 95% of people believe they're more trustworthy than average. And that's not just statistically impossible, it's also problematic because it means if you and I were having a mix-up, if you and I were struggling with something, we would both think it was the other person's fault. And then we wouldn't do the work to make things better. And
Wow.
so that's one of the challenges. Another is just our lack of awareness, Lisa. When I ask people who do they trust, they give me these close, tight personal relationships, right? Like spouse or best friend or parents or siblings. But the reality is we trust people all the time. You know, when we go to a restaurant, we get in a cab, we get on an airplane. You go to the doctor's office and they say, take off your clothes. And you do,
Right.
right? And you don't really know that person. So the reality is we trust some people more than others. And, you know, we need to be aware that trust is involved in almost every interaction we have.
Wow. I never really quite thought of it that way. I always think about the old adage of how trust is earned in inches and lost in miles. But it's so interesting if we all think we're trustworthy, 95% of us are thinking that that's statistically obviously impossible. So
Right.
how can we build trust immediately, like right away when you meet somebody? How can you just make it better?
So that's a good question. And part of the message that I try to spread is that trust, the definition for trust is it's a willingness to be vulnerable when you can't completely predict how someone else is going to behave. And so if I'm asking you to trust me, I'm asking you to make yourself a bit vulnerable to me.
Right,
Best way for me to get you to do that is for me to go first.
right,
So if I trust you a little bit, if I make myself a little bit vulnerable to you, there's a higher probability that you're going to respond in kind. And it's one of those things where we need to be careful. We want to share, no, don't scare, right?
right.
So sharing information about ourselves, when you and I first started talking, it was, well, where are you from? Where you live? Where do you live now? How did you get there? And showing interest in one another and curiosity about each other are ways that we can start to build trust. Um, I think that there are 10 levers that we can pull to build trust with other people. My favorite is benevolence, which is this belief that you've got my best interest at heart.
Wow.
And so if I start being aware of how I can be helpful to you, how I can help you succeed, and start showing you that I'm willing to do that, it builds a pretty quickly starts a virtuous cycle for us.
Yeah. So benevolence, vulnerability,
Yeah.
authenticity.
Yeah, that's a dangerous word for me. It's a trigger word for
Okay.
me.
I know it's popular.
It's very popular, right?
Right.
And so often people mean accept me when I'm being authentic. Um, because the people on January 6th were very authentic when they stormed the Capitol. Um, but it didn't make people trust them,
Wow. Interesting distinction. So true.
right? So I think we need to be somewhat transparent. We need to be sincere. Um, and partly I'm kind of blessed because I'm legally blind. And so I wander the world with my guide dog Drake. And I get the opportunity to be vulnerable often because we
Yeah.
need help fairly often.
Right.
Um, and it just initiates these incredibly positive exchanges and interactions with folks.
I love that.
So,
When
yeah,
we started talking, it just comes through that you're authentic and trustworthy.
I care about people.
Yeah, it really shows. And thanks for sharing your vulnerable share on the being legally blind and how you're just opening up my eyes, so to speak, about what it means to blindly trust people because you have to.
I do, right?
Yeah.
And I have experiences in places where people come up to me and they offer to help. Um, and I don't feel like that diminishes me because
Wow.
I help people in other ways.
Interesting.
And there's a lot of us who get caught up in this notion that if I make myself vulnerable, it exposes weakness. It means people can hurt me. But
Hmm.
I actually think it takes real strength.
Yeah, it really does. I agree.
Yeah, and I was working with a group of senior executives and we were talking about benevolence. And I said to them, tell me a story about a time when you helped somebody, when you made a positive impact in someone's life. We went around the room and they were all telling their stories and there was huge grins. Everyone, like the energy in the room was just so positive, Lisa.
Right.
And I said, this is fantastic. Now, if you can just explain to me why you're so effing selfish.
Oh,
And they kind
love
of went,
that
what?
more.
And I said, because you've just told me what a positive impact it's been in your life to have helped someone, but you never let anyone have that opportunity with you. You never ask for help. You never admit that you need support or that you don't know something. And you
Right.
don't lean on each other. You want to be strong and independent and siloed when you could be working together.
I love that. People need to be called to the mat on their behavior because there's such a huge, everyone knows they need to delegate, but they don't. And everybody knows they need to empower others for retention and all kinds of millions of reasons. But it's good when people get called out to the mat and you don't take any of their crap.
Yeah, it changed the dynamic for that team.
Good.
And what we need to realize, like I have had the experience of people who are homeless who have come up to me and asked if they could help me.
I love that.
And their feeling of gratitude, the feeling that, hey, I was able to contribute, I was able to be helpful to someone. People at our lowest point still look for ways to have meaning, to have positive impact in somebody else's life.
This is powerful. I want to stay on this topic a little bit more because diving deeper and unpacking a little bit a few more of your levers would really be a great next step, because
Sure.
open my eyes with this whole benevolence thing, and I also just want to commend you on the fact that you let people help you.
Yeah, like I said, I had to get to a place where I realized this doesn't diminish me.
Good.
Um, and that I contribute to the world in other ways.
Right.
And in fact, it's a gift to that other person to allow them to assist me. And one of the things we're seeing in the world right now, Lisa, is a real struggle, particularly for young men, around asking for help.
Right.
They're in a loneliness crisis and all of those kinds of things. That sort of broken narrative that it means I'm less than or that I'm weak. Um,
Hmm.
and it's such a gift to someone else to allow them to assist you.
Yes.
The best way to get men to ask you for help is to ask them for help first.
Interesting.
Yeah, because it creates this norm of reciprocity, right? I mean, you and I are having this great conversation, we're having this great exchange, and partly it started before we even started filming.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's how you are walking the walk and actually leading by being trustworthy. And that makes me feel safe to ask you for help if I need it, to share this or whatever it is that I ask you to do as a guest.
Right.
And I, love reciprocity and leading by helping. But it's hard for me too, even as a woman, to ask for help.
It's hard for all of us. And part of the challenge we see in the world right now, Lisa, is the fact that trust is a combination of uncertainty and vulnerability,
Right.
right? It's because the definition was a willingness to be vulnerable when you can't completely predict how someone else is going to behave. Well, in the
Okay.
model that I use, that means it's uncertainty times vulnerability gives us a level of perceived risk. And we each have a threshold of risk that we can tolerate. And so if our perception of the risk goes beyond that threshold, we don't trust. If it's
Okay.
beneath it, then we do. And what that means is if uncertainty is really high, then vulnerability has to be really low for us to trust.
Right.
And
That's
go ahead.
no, I love your formula. Keep going with that formula.
As our relationships get deeper, the uncertainty goes down, the range of vulnerability we can tolerate starts to grow.
Interesting. Yeah, that is great.
We all have a certain level of vulnerability in our lives. We've got family that we look out for. We've got our reputations. We've got our jobs. We're paying the bills. We've got stuff that we have to pay for. We have this certain set level of vulnerability. And what's come along and happened is uncertainty has started to bounce all over the place
Oh, yeah.
because norms and values are changing. We had COVID. We've got political craziness from both
I
sides of the
agree.
spectrum.
I agree.
And that means that because our uncertainty is bouncing all over the place, our sense of risk is bouncing all over the place. And it
Yeah.
makes it harder for us. If I come to you and say, I want you to trust me, make yourself just a little more vulnerable. You're sitting there feeling like, oh, I'm already maxed out. I can't even be a little more vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, the chaos is really testing us to our limits, all the uncertainty in the world right now and all the rapid fire changing of tech.
Yeah. Now imagine, your listeners are leaders.
Right.
So let's ask them to imagine for a second that their people are all experiencing that. And we're asking them to be vulnerable at work, to make mistakes, to learn, grow, and adapt, to try new things. Nobody wants to change or try new things because it means there's more uncertainty. And I don't know about you, Lisa, but I'm not good at new things the first time I try them.
Right. I allow myself to fail forward on most things.
Right. But if somebody's sitting over us and looking and going, "Hey, don't make any mistakes," or why did you screw that up? I become less and less willing to be vulnerable. I
Of
become more and
course.
more cautious.
Yeah. Criticism is not a good leadership skill.
And so the challenge for leaders is that the more senior they become, the less direct control they have over outcomes. The more they depend on the people they lead to reach all of their goals and objectives.
Right.
And so their success is driven by the work of others.
Correct.
So leadership is actually completely intertwined with trust. And it's actually, for me, it's the thing that differentiates those who are just kind of okay as leaders and those who are truly exceptional.
I love all the stuff. I'm wondering, since you talk about leading with imperfections, is that piggybacking on what we're already talking about?
It is in a way because just about every leader I talk to, Lisa, I'll say to them, "Are you the same leader you were 5 years ago?" And they go, "No, I've had to learn and grow and adapt, and I've got more experience." Do you think you're going to be the same leader 5 years from now that you are today? I sure
Never.
hope not,
Right?
right? And so that means you're going to be trying new things. You're going to be learning new skills. You're going to have to step out of the things that got you to where you are now that you're really good at and step into the things that will make you great as you evolve and grow. And along the way, you're going to make mistakes.
Right.
You're going to stumble, right? You may fall. And what you need is to say to the people you lead, none of us are perfect. And I'm going to make mistakes. And when I stumble, my expectations that you'll be there, supporting me, helping me get back up and dust myself off, because that's exactly what I'm going to do for you.
Wow. I'm so glad we're recording this because everything you're saying is pure gold. And I just think that people should be taking notes or recording this and listening to the recording afterwards. So, leading imperfection in a world where leaders are taught to project certainty, how does embracing vulnerability give you real power?
It shows others that they don't have to be perfect. And it embodies a sense of grace for all of us,
Yeah.
right? There's a an overlap between being a leader and being a parent,
Okay.
right? Some of the same skills are required.
Right.
And one of the things I told my sons early on is I'm not perfect,
Good.
right? I'm going to make mistakes. I'm learning this as we go. Um, so that when I did make mistakes, they were prepared for that. Leaders need to be in that same mindset and need to have their teams making small mistakes. Because if they aren't making small mistakes, it means they're not pushing to the limit of their abilities.
That is so true.
Yeah. And so a leader who's able to say, I haven't always known everything. I am not always going to know everything. I'm going to lean on expertise of other people. I'm going to let you grow and develop. I'm not going to expect you to be perfect when you first start learning something. They
Right.
develop teams that'll go through a wall for them.
Absolutely. I love your strategy. I only have one more question for you because it's such a short podcast, but honestly, I could keep talking to you for another hour. And my last question is just that you've worked with some of the world's most elite institutions. What's the number one trust building habit high performing teams must adapt right now to stay resilient in these turbulent times?
So I think narrowing it down to one is going to be a real challenge for me, Lisa.
Well, give us
Um,
5 or 7 or 9, whatever you got. Let's do rapid
so
fire round.
so there are 10 levers. I would get them to
Let's
focus on
pull them all.
uncertainty.
Focus on uncertainty.
And uncertainty comes from us as individuals, and it comes from the context that we're embedded in. So these are four of the levers I'm going to explain really quick.
Oh,
Benevolence, having each other's best interest at heart. And that means spotlighting each other's successes, including each other in the conversation so that you show that you understand what their best interests are or what success means for them, so that you can be transparent when you actually engage in it. Integrity, so having a shared understanding of what the promises are that we're making and how our actions line up with the values that we express. Ability is the third lever. Having a shared conversation about what good looks like. You and I did that at the start of this podcast. I asked you how I could be one of the best guests you've ever had. And we talked about that. So
Yeah, thank you.
I don't have to make up or come with the wrong assumptions about what good looks like. You've told me.
Correct.
And if we wanted to get even better, we would sit down with some of your listeners and ask them, what are some of the best shows? What are some of the best podcasts? And then context. It's the rules of the game. So sharing an understanding of what are the formal and informal mechanisms of our team and how do they help us be successful together? And do we all have a shared understanding of what they are?
Does that context also apply to what their particular context is within the team?
It does. Yeah. And so it's understanding how my role is defined, what good looks like in my role, what good looks like for the team, what good looks like for the leader so that I can help them be successful. So we've got a shared understanding and we're not putting a lot of effort into things that don't count.
Wow. Final lightning round. What's the last lever you want to pull?
Last lever. Um, hmm. So I wrote my doctoral thesis on building trust in hostile environments.
Great.
And there are a bunch of things that go into that. There's a bunch of stuff that I do that other trust researchers just don't. 99% of the trust research treats people like they're rational actors. I don't
Wow.
know if you've met people before, but we're not really rational. Um, and so be aware that it matters if we're liked or not. If we like people, we tend to look for reasons to trust them. We're more likely to trust them, and we're more likely to see the outcomes positively. Give people the benefit of the doubt. And that's why this has been such a great experience for me because I like you.
Well, thank you. Me too. And that's the best point of all, I think, is a lot of people don't have that awareness of if they're liked or not and really understand the impact on their success in business by being just likable and authentic. Even though I
Yeah,
promised I wasn't going to drop the A word in my head, it just kind of slipped out.
fair enough.
So where can people find you, Darryl?
So they can go to my website, trustunlimited.com. And if they look in the About section, they'll see a picture of the Director of Goodness for my company, the DOG. It's my
Wow.
guide dog, Drake. Um, there's a blog section there with all kinds of articles and videos and those kinds of things. If they want to learn more, they can read my book, Building Trust, Exceptional Leadership in an Uncertain World. And if they have more questions, they can reach out to me at Darryl@trustunlimited.com.
Well, thanks, Darryl, for being an amazing guest. I hope to see you soon. This isn't our first and last conversation, one and done.
I hope so as well, because you're too
Awesome.
enjoyable not to experience more than once.
Well, I thank you very much, and I will see you soon.